We are living in the world of Zoom. So it's great to have innovation strategist and Harvard professor Susan Robertson with us. And she has some ideas on how, this is mainly for business people, and I guess educators, on how you can actually connect with people while being disconnected. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So how do we make this work? Because you and I, we're talking and we're kind of vibing. We just met, but
Right.
When people are doing business or educating, especially educating, they have to find a way to engage everybody, not just one person.
Exactly.
You have some thoughts on how to fix that?
I definitely do have some thoughts about how to fix that. So it's actually relatively easy to do it with 2, 3, or even 4 people. My experimentation has shown me that up to 4 people, it's pretty good on Zoom because you can still see everyone well enough to see their body language and everybody has a chance to talk and people can engage. But once you get beyond about 4, it starts to become a problem. And what we know from neuroscience is that engagement, which is what we're looking for, is the combination of both attention and emotion. And we often don't like to talk about emotion in a professional setting or even in an educational setting, but it is actually important to have both of those things. And one of the things that I find really helpful to engage people emotionally is to let them get to know at least maybe 2 or 3 other people. So if you have a class or a meeting with 20 or 25 people in it, you really need to put people in breakout groups and give them an opportunity to meet each other. And you need to give them a structured way to do that. And can I share an exercise that I happen to really like?
Please do. Because I mean, like when you think about, let's just say a class of 25 middle schoolers, and you come in up for it, and it's like they're just like just happy to have some time to themselves. So
exactly,
lock them down, like focus.
Right. So structure and very specific instructions. So I call this particular exercise story scavenger hunt. And what you tell people to do is you give them 5 minutes exactly, and you tell them we're going to start promptly in 5 minutes, and you tell them to go out into their own home and find 2 objects. One object that represents a positive or funny story about themselves, and a second object that represents a positive or funny story about a family member. And then when they come back, you put everybody in breakout groups, small groups, 3 or 4 people, and each person holds up their object. So let's say this is one of my objects and this is my other object. And the rest of the group decides which object they want to hear the story. So the group has some say in it. So you as the person have to be prepared to tell the story of either object. And you give each person just 1 minute to tell their story. And you go around and you also, I forgot to say at the beginning, you say somebody in each group be the timekeeper. So they set a stop clock for 60 seconds and each person gets 1 minute to tell their story. And this entire exercise takes about 10 minutes, including the instruction and them finding the objects and telling the story. And it's so worth the engagement they get because now they know a funny story about everybody in their group. And granted, they don't know that about the whole group, but just engaging with a few people sets the tone of what you're trying to do. And if you have an hour's worth of a meeting or an educational session, 10 minutes of getting people truly engaged, meaning engaging their emotions, is worth the time invested.
I'm engaged. You got me. So I know there's some other tips that go along with attention, but let's go ahead and pivot to emotion. So give me something I can do to emotionally engage with people I'm disconnected from.
Well, one of the things that we know that people need in order to be emotionally engaged is to feel heard. So here's another particular activity that I find incredibly useful. It's called 1, 2, 4, all. And it's because that's what you do. So you give people the topic. Let's say if it's a business meeting, you say, here's what the problem we need to solve. Think about this individually, that's 1. Or if it's an educational environment, here's the topic we're going to learn about. Think about what you already know about it individually, and you give them 1 minute to do that individually. And then you go to 2, which is you pair people. So now 2 of them, and the 2 of you now come to some conclusion, right? So you have a minute or 2 to discuss your differing points of view and come to one conclusion. And then you put 2 twos together to make 4. And now the 4 of you have 2 different viewpoints now that you've come together. And again, the 4 of you are to come out with one conclusion or one recommendation. And then after 4, you go to all and you come back to the big group. And what this does is allow everyone to speak. They may have only spoken to one other person or 2 other people, but at least everybody had a chance to speak. They had a chance to voice their opinion. They had a chance to give their input. Even if it isn't to the entire 25 people, they've had a chance to be heard. And their input has gone into whatever the larger output is going to be for the group, because their input has gone every step of the way in their group. So this really allows people to be heard and feel emotionally engaged.
Is there anywhere online people can connect with you and maybe pick your brain for more of these tips and innovations?
Sure. My website is susanrobertson.co, and that's not a typo. There is no M. susanrobertson.co.
All right. Well, thanks very much for spending some time with me. I'm going to use your notes and see if I can make these interviews even more engaging.
Excellent. Thank you, Rance. I'm happy to be here.